Hey y'all, DrTHasanJ here. Wanted to give a few words about Chadwick Boseman. And I know there's already been a lot said. Everything has come out. Technically, in social media time frame, I'm late. Yeah. I wanted to spend some time really reflecting on it, and I saw something today that really pushed me over the edge. And I thought, you know what, it's time to give a little word about this. So, first off, I want to say that I've been a fan of his work for a minute now. I wouldn't say I was a super fan, but I appreciated what he did. And I'm saying that as a teacher, most especially an Africana Studies teacher. I appreciated the heart he brought to his roles, but I also appreciated his willingness to really bring Black history alive for a new generation. And I'm talking about his three seminal roles as Thurgood Marshall, Jackie Robinson, and James Brown. It was good to see the intricacies of these men's lives, the sacrifice they made, the mistakes they made, the relationships they had, and to see that acted with heart, sincerity, dedication. Obviously, his role as T'Challa was incredibly important. Now, I've been outspoken about this since the film came out. I had my problems with it, but none of those problems had to do with Chadwick. They all had to do with the writing. And I wrote a blog piece about this. You can find it on my blog, newblackmasculinities.wordpress.com, or you can just search Dr. THasan-Johnson and the Black Panther, and you should be able to find it that way. But overall, you know, my problem with the Black Panther is that they took away his most important superpower and gave it to his little sister. And that was obviously, you know, a kind of gesture at her taking over as the Panther. And that to me was a slap in the face to generations of Black men who've been fighting to see themselves represented in comics in a particular way. And to this day, the Black Panther I've read for the last, I've been collecting comics for over 40 years. I've never got to see that Black Panther on the screen. He was immediately usurped by, you know, a whole different priority, a whole different agenda. And so although I appreciated him making it to the screen, it wasn't for the reasons that I read the comics over the years. And it denied the work of Black men for decades who've been fighting to make sure that Panther had relevance to Black male life. And I salute Coogler in that as well. I think he did still do things that made the story relevant. I mean, the whole change up between Panther and Killmonger and the relationship between African Americans, slavery, and Wakanda, powerful twist that I never appreciated in the comics in the same kind of way. So a lot of that I think had a lot to do with Coogler. But nonetheless, Chadwick's performance was brilliant. So when I found out that it was actually him that suggested the line that Killmonger makes about dying in the ocean or having his body placed in the ocean along those who, you know, refuse to stay in bondage, that was a beautiful testament to his spirit. So I really do appreciate him. Obviously, I can say him being 43 and dying from stage 4 colon cancer hits home in a different way when you're 45. I'm 45, I'll be 46 in October. That hits different, you know. I don't know what to say. It gives you a sense of mortality in a way to see someone who, by all means, in terms of resources and connections and notoriety, there's no way in the world you would think he would die of something like this so young. But if he can, anybody can. So that was impactful, you know. And as somebody who I've seen inspire my own son, sitting in the movie theater, he and I both watching his work together, and I've taken him to see all of his movies. We went to see, well, not all of his movies, but all of the major ones I've been mentioning here. There's still work he's got coming out that we haven't seen. I look forward to that. I enjoyed the Five Bloods. I really thought he gave an excellent performance there. But I took my son in with me to watch him play Thurgood Marshall, to watch him play Jackie Robinson, to watch him play James Brown, and the Black Panther. And I got to see him inspire my son over and over again. So I have nothing but respect for him on a variety of levels. But as far as the cancer, it's jarring. And when you look through the data, it's even more so, because you realize that Chadwick, in a way, really represents a lot of faceless black men, faceless in the sense that we don't know who they are, who've been dying from the same kind of things, even at his age. I mean, really, when you go through the data, and I'm going to show a couple of charts here, what you find is that black men are dying 2 to 3 times more than even black women, you know, in regard to a variety of different cancers. I mean, even the scales they use per 100,000, the very scales themselves are 2 to 3 times higher for charts on black male incident rates and death rates, because that it's impacting us that much more. And yet there's no conversation about that. You know, my son has come home from elementary school to middle school, you know, with these ribbons for participating in fundraisers and awareness raisers and walks and track and field events, you know, that were all dedicated to breast cancer. And there's nothing wrong with that. I don't decry that breast cancer is being acknowledged, but when you find that the rates for men in particular in terms of prostate cancer, let alone suffering from a variety of different cancers altogether in much higher numbers, for that to go completely unacknowledged, both in terms of men in general, but also in terms of black men, it hits different. It's hard to take these issues at face value without really feeling like there's an underlying agenda that has to do with ignoring, underdeveloping, and downplaying the experiences of black men. And so I'm sad that Chadwick passed. I do hope, however, that his passing will bring some attention to what black men grapple with. And those are issues that you know, impact us in different ways. I mean, obviously we can talk about environment. We can look at the ways that in most states, you know, especially when you talk about the black poor, they tend to live in areas or really be relegated to areas that are unsafe, you know, that generate cancer to higher degrees. But still, we find that black men tend to have it in much higher rates than black women. It's not just a black issue. And that's the problem I have with this idea of flat blackness, that somehow on gender terms, you know, either black men's experiences are ignored or their numbers are just contributed to this, you know, amorphous idea of blackness. But we don't parse through the data on gender terms unless it applies to women and girls. And so black men become, you know, persona non grata, even when the numbers are telling the story that they need more attention. And again, when you think about the attention they need, and you look at something like, you know, Obama's My Brother's Keepers program, the first people to come for that were black feminists. So it's sad, because whether we're talking about education, whether we're talking about health, whether we're talking about employment, what that means is when black men speak up, the first people to silence them are the women who are saying that they need more attention, even though the data suggests that they're doing far better than their men. How do you reconcile that? I mean, already there's discussions about going back to Black Panther. You know, is it time now for Shuri to take over? Just because the actor playing him died. What kind of, he wasn't even cold yet when these discussions started. And I found that to be terribly sad, even though we all knew it was going to happen in the films because of the comic books, but it's still sad because, you know, both the real life man and the hero that I've been reading for 40 years, neither one is getting their just due. You know, so that hurts. Black men also suffer from limited healthcare access, so that contributes to the high cancer numbers, I would more than imagine, which means that the numbers are probably a little low in terms of incidence rates, because, you know, in some instances they may not find out until somebody is really on their deathbed. You know, if a brother hasn't gone in to get checked or been into the hospital and literally just falls apart in front of your eyes. And I've seen that happen. I've seen black men die in silence, you know, behind that. And then lastly, I would say that we have reservations. We have a distrust, you know, for the medicinal and pharmaceutical industry, you know, the healthcare industry. When you look at real life historical events like the Tuskegee syphilis experiments, you understand there is a precedent for it. But we still have to do, brothers. We got to get checked, especially if you're over 35. Get your colon checked, get your prostate checked. It's important. I've had it done a couple times. I'm not thrilled about it, but I'm probably overdue to get it checked out again. This obviously is going to inspire me to do so, and I'm really urging that my brothers do the same. If you have access to that, make sure you get your healthcare access in check so you can do that, because this is not something you want to sneak up on you. 2020 has been that kind of year, especially for black men, whether you're talking about accidents like Kobe Bryant, whether you're talking about police homicide like we've seen with Ahmaud Arbery and George Floyd and many others to this very day, who are only in the news if they've died on camera to meet other people's titillation, or just fetishize interest in seeing black male death. But at least we're living in an era where these things are recorded, because I grew up in a time period where you heard about it by word of mouth, but it was difficult to prove on any wide scale because you weren't seeing newspapers tabulating how many black men were dying per year. You weren't seeing video accounts of it. I mean, hell, Rodney King was a fluke. Somebody just happened to have a camera on when it happened, right? That opened up a whole new era of both death porn on one end, but at the same time, a much needed transparency about how black men are actually treated. And death by police is just one side of that. There's many other aspects to how black men are treated, even to the point of death in this society. And I dare say a lot of people still wouldn't believe it without the kind of videos that we still see coming out to this day. And yet I still find people coming in trying to take over, trying to take the attention given to those black male deaths and apply it to anyone but black males. Black males are almost the only group that hasn't been able to develop any policy to stem off their own deaths, their own unjust deaths. And yet even in our own communities, we got to fight to actually make sure that our deaths actually generate some kind of discussion about curbing black male death. And yet, still a fight that I don't see us winning. But the article that really got to me, that made me want to record this right now, is a piece that came out today. And it was talking about why Chadwick didn't come forward about his condition. And it was only, apparently it was just a tight network, a very small network of people who knew. Not even Kevin Feige knew over at Marvel. I mean, he didn't know till the day Chad died. But Chad's agent came forward and said that, one reason was that, Chadwick was very private. But he said the other reason was that Chadwick's mother told him that he shouldn't ever be a fuss to anyone. Like, nobody should have to fuss over him. He shouldn't be a bother to others. And truthfully, that hurt my heart. It really hurt my heart to hear that we are raised and socialized to abandon our own pain and think ourselves unworthy of attention, love, support, any of that. And it's not that the concept is new. That's not why it hurt my heart. It hurt my heart because it confirmed and affirmed what many of us have been saying, particularly in black male studies and my work in black masculinism. This is a part of our existence. I developed the concept of the concuserf, and I know it sounds simplistic and it sounds kind of whatever, but when you really break down what a concubine and a serf is, and you look at the ways in which black men have been asked to play those roles, not only in the larger society, but even within their own communities, even within their own households, their own families, their entire existence is about how well they serve other people's interests, and even how well their deaths serve each other's interests. My good brother, Dr. Lehman Basil, he said something the other day that really hit me. He said, for some people, black men's unjust deaths are like winning the lottery. I've seen people develop political careers. I've seen people get millions of dollars that these black men had to lose their lives for them to get. And that hurts my heart. But he learned from his mother that he shouldn't be a fuss for anybody else. And you can see how deeply he internalized that idea. And when I think about it, it also brought me to another piece I read today, that was talking about, was quoting Michelle Obama. Michelle Obama was talking about the difficulties of marriage. And she called herself trying to help young couples. But, she makes this statement at a particular point that there are days she just wanted to push, Barack out of a window. And I listened to this, and she talked about how difficult and how hard marriage is. And I've been married. I've been, married nearly a decade. I get it. And it's not that she's wrong. It's more to the issue that I have never heard a first lady talk about a past president or a husband like that in such a way. And this is something BGS has been talking about for the last couple of years, the kind of low boiling misandry, low boiling disrespect that Michelle has presented for Barack, and what that says about the relationships between black women and black men, because it's far from, Barack being the only one to experience that. Many of us have on a day-to-day basis, because low boiling misandry is accepted in African American culture. And as feminism has broadened its shores, we're starting to hear it in Africa as well, right? It seems to be part and parcel to feminism, but particularly when it hits black communities, there's a very particular type of misandry that comes out of that you don't even see mirrored by white women in their communities. But when I thought about both the Michelle piece and the piece on Chadwick and his mother, it hurt my heart, because it suggested that, yet again, black men are experiencing a low-level disdain, a low-level misandry that comes out in ways that, from the people they trust most, they have to be silent, they have to suffer in silence, they have to be absent their own pain, they have to be void of support. And it highlights their utility, despite, as we go back to Michelle, how much our very being, our very presence irritates, And of course, that's natural in human relationships, but it isn't natural to hear that stated aloud about a black man who, enjoyed a level of status that no other black man ever had in history. I'm not a huge Obama fan. I had a number of problems, most particularly the impact of his policies on black wealth and, of course, incarceration. But that said, the way that hits about black men, it was distasteful, it was disrespectful, and yet common, more and more so. So anyway, I just wanted to drop a few thoughts, and I want to leave you with something that I think said a lot about Chadwick. And when you really think about the issue that impacts him and how it relates to him, it's even more jarring. But this to me is an image of the way I choose to remember the brother, and I hope you get something out of it. So check it out, and peace.
All of it's been very personal, just watching the kids experience it. And for me, I would say, they're two little kids, Ian and Taylor, who recently passed from cancer. And throughout our filming, I was communicating with them, knowing that they were both terminal. And what they said to me is, and their parents said, they're trying to hold on till this movie comes. And to a certain degree, you hear them say that and you're like, wow, that's like, I gotta get up and go to the gym. I gotta get up and go to work. I gotta learn these lines. I gotta work on this accent. Seeing how devoted all of my castmates are, and knowing that will be something meaningful to them. But it's, to a certain degree, it's a humbling experience, because you're like, this can't mean that much to them, But seeing how the world has taken this on, seeing how the movement is, how it's taken on a life of its own, I realized that they anticipated something great. And I think back now to a kid and just, waiting for Christmas to come, waiting for my birthday to come, waiting for a toy that I was going to get a chance to experience, or a video game. I did live life waiting for those moments. And so it put me back in the mind of being a kid, just to experience those two little boys' anticipation of this movie. And when I found out that they
time with it.
Yeah, it means a lot.